SD47.18 Pankadha Sutta, the Pankadha discourse, or the discourse at Pankadha. So this is the name of the place. No? So we have suttas title formed in various ways according to the place name, the person's name, according to the occasion, and so on. A3.90. So here we know at once that there is three things there. Now, one more thing we should know is that there are sometimes the numbering can be different. Right? You can see square brackets. It says A brackets. It should be BE. Right? BE means Burmese edition. So in the Burmese edition, the numbering is one extra. It's 3.91. Okay, whereas the European edition is 90. This is one of the historical baggage we have, because since we are English speaking, we use the European edition. So they edicted this during the Victorian period, around 100 years ago. They were not exactly Buddhist, so some of this paragraphing, they're not certain. So when I translate, these numberings are kind of, more standard, although some of there are variations. It's the way the editors list the suttas, okay? How the Western scholars list suttas, how the Burmese list the suttas, and so on. And then you come to the sutta itself. It's a big chunk, so it helps to number the paragraphs. So I try my best to follow the standard way of numbering. It was very difficult. It's all right to follow those of the Digha Nikaya, because somehow the paragraphs are kind of standard. Majjhima also not too difficult. You can follow the standard numbering. After that, Sangyutta and Nikaya and Anguttara is a bit difficult. Most of the Pali either are not numbered or the numbers are very sparse. You got one number and then a big chunk of materials. So if you're a teacher, it's very difficult, So you have to say, go to this page and count so many numbers from the bottom or top of the page. It's very difficult. So, in fact, some editors, they're very compassionate. They actually put numbers in the Pali books also. It was very easy for us. I saw this in the Jataka editions. So all the line numbers are given to you. So it's very convenient. So you notice, if you look at the translation, I give lots of paragraph number. In fact, today's sutta, I kind of overdid it. There are lots of, every 2 lines is one number. So it's very easy to refer. I'll just say, okay, go to line 10, line 12, so it's very easy for the teacher. So this is one of those things we were not standardized yet. We're still in the early stages of sutta study. And whatever it is, we have the suttas. That's the great thing. Another point we need to know is the names also can differ sometimes. For example, in the Burmese edition, the title of this sutta is Sangkawa. Okay, instead of Pankadha, we can Sangkawa. One reason is sometimes it's the way the characters are written, in the, say, Burmese Sinhalese. If you read the Sinhalese Pali scripts, the Pali manuscripts, very often you may notice there are what they call confusion between the letter T and the letter D, which are very close, just by a slight curve only. See, the Sinhalese, they write the letter. Let me see. Okay. This is T. This is N. Sorry, this is N. And then you have. Okay, this is. I'm trying to remember. I think this is T. This is N. So you see, they're very close. Everything is the same except this thing here. And also in Thai, you have other difficulties. No? But generally, as a translator, we should know these variations. And these are just minor historical incidences, we say. All right, so the name of the place is different in Burmese. Then, next thing is the theme of this sutta is that all monastics should desire the three trainings. No? Should want to be trained in Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. Now, what's interesting is this sutta is preserved in the Anguttara, which is meant for lay people, but here we still have a teaching for the monks, right? Because the three trainings apply to everybody, whether it's monks or laymen, right? So especially for the monks, they need to have a special interest in the practice of the three trainings. Now, this sutta is about how this monk got very upset when he heard the Buddha teaching. The Buddha was kind of very strict. He thought the Buddha was very strict. He was kind of living by himself, probably living a very relaxed life. So here comes the Buddha and starts telling all this, how to practice properly. And he says, oh no, this teacher is so fussy, you know. And then when the Buddha leaves, he felt regret, remorse, that he shouldn't think that way. So, and that moved him to go to the Buddha and apologize, and then the Buddha say, okay, that's very good, you know. So basically that's how the sutta started. So we see it, this record of very human situations which are very important to us, which show the way we behave, the way we should behave, the way we should not behave. What should we do when it is wrong? How should we further increase it if it is good and right? So this is one of those suttas. No? Now, as usual, you find many of the suttas, they're almost like, it's like a conversation with the Buddha. When you study the sutta, you are listening into this ancient conversation that went on 2,500 years ago. And by listening, and you can also kind of see the situation. So the description here, you have also to kind of like visualize yourself, if possible, at that moment. Then you have a better connection with what the Buddha is trying to tell us. There's a lot of repetition, and this repetition is to keep us connected, right? So, especially when you're listening to the teaching. So, you find if you go to, say, a retreat center, all those monks were sitting down in the meditation hall listening to the teacher talking the Dhamma. You find none of them actually has got any notebook. So, they just listen and they get used to the teachings that way. Of course, later on in their own privacy, they can take notes. So the idea here is that as a Buddhist practitioner, we should try our best to remember the teachings as far as possible. Although it's a bit difficult nowadays because we are so reliant on books. Right? We are following what's called the scribal tradition, the written tradition, whereas the suttas follow an oral tradition. So this is where, as I do my translation work, I begin to discover new facets, interesting aspects of the sutta of Pali that we should know. For example, if you look at the Pali sentence, you find very often they put the verb at the end. But in English, we put the verb somewhere in the middle. In Pali, the Pali sentences tend to put the key word first. For example, we say, Buddhang saranang gacchami, to the Buddha for refuge I go, which sounds all right in English, but if you want to be idiomatic, you say, I go to the Buddha for refuge. Right? So when you translate, you have to translate into idiomatic English. Otherwise, you get what's called a translation that's too literal, right? So what we want is idiomatic translation, idiomatic language. The other extreme is you have very beautiful English, but it really goes off the original Pali, right? So we call that very free translation, right? For example, the Jataka stories, the 6 volumes of translation, they're very nice to read, but they're mostly very free translation. In fact, the verses are really good, you know. When you read the 6 volumes of the Jataka stories in English, the verses are all rhyming verses. So these translators, they were very great, what I call classical scholars. You don't get many of those nowadays. They studied Greek and Latin and English, maybe French and German too. So they're very good in all this prosody and so on, in other words, poetry. So they rhyme. They actually translate the Pali verses, Pali poems into English poems with rhyme, which is very difficult. And we're talking about 6 volumes, thousands of pages, you know. But there's a cost here, see. You find they will go off the Pali a bit. So this is where there's this big argument, you know. Translation studies, whether there is such a thing as translation. In other words, once you translate, you're actually creating a totally new work. It's very different from what the Buddha taught. So this is one of the problems when we translate. How do we present the translation as closely to the original as possible without making it sound uncomfortable in English, as someone put it, you know. It can sound very strange in English that people, will remember the wrong thing. So you have a problem there. It is still possible to translate into beautiful English, right? So that's why we need different translations, right? And there are also different ways of translating. Like, for example, the way I follow is that you can use what's called, you include the alternate translation, right? Because sometimes one Pali word has got many meanings, and the English cannot one word cannot contain all those meanings. So you got to give footnotes and explain. So you have what's called alternate translation. You have 2 possible translations. For example, the word Dharma. Dharma has the sense of truth, true reality, and also has a sense of the teaching of the Buddha. So you've got 2 aspects there. Sometimes both are meant, sometimes something more specific is meant. So here again, the translator must really know the context, which is not easy. So if we're not certain, one way out is we use the original word, the Dhamma. Okay, that's quite safe. So for example, you can say to the Dhamma, I go for refuge. It is much more safer that way. But in a sense, when you say I go to the Dhamma for refuge, you go for both the teaching and the truth, right? So having said that, we begin to understand why the suttas are arranged in such a way so that different groups of people can appreciate it, right? So here in Anguttara you find for the lay people. And yet this sutta is about a monk. Pankadha Sutta, the Pankadha Discourse, A3.90. What page is it? 178, right? 173. 173.
Translation is it? 177.
177. At one time, the Blessed One was wandering or peregrinating in Kosala with a great community of monks. So this time we're not told exactly how many, we just say it's a big community of monks. They arrived at a Kosala market town called Pankadha. Burmese is Sangkawa, all right? Okay, you have market town. The hierarchy of habited areas there. First is you have the village, the Gama. Okay, maybe just a few houses. And then you have Nigama. Nigama is the market town. Nigama is where originally there is a crossroads there. Okay, this is one of those English words with the S, but you say a crossroads. So people will come there. They might maybe sell water or some food. Maybe a hawker will come along. Because it's a crossroad, people will stop and rest. So it starts like that with just a few hawkers, people selling things. And then slowly more people came, and then people start staying there. And then they build houses there. And whenever you have this kind of traders, merchants, travelers coming, that place prospers. So a market town is usually bigger than a gama. Of course, a gama can grow very big. It can grow into a nagara, but it's still called a gama, like Pataligama. Pataligama is the capital of the country, of Magadha. But then it's still called a gama. But that's because the old name was gama. All right, so this is a market town. And of course, the Buddha doesn't live in the market town. He usually will live outside, which quiet enough. You don't hear the noise of the city. And then in the morning, when it's quiet, he'll go into the city or the village to collect alms and then come back and eat. Or sometimes he will sit in the village or town and eat. Right, so they arrive at a coastal market town called Pankadha. The Blessed One dwelled right there. At that time, a monk named Kassapa Gota dwelled at Pankadha. Right, so this is the key character here, Kassapa Gota. This is very obviously it's not his name. This is his clan. Kassapa is a very famous clan name. In fact, the word Gota also means clan. There, the Blessed One instructed, inspired, roused, and gladdened the monks with a Dhamma talk related to the teaching. So, in other words, here, this stop phrase means the Buddha gave a very long talk. Okay, so that's the introduction. And then section 5. Now, as the Blessed One was instructing, inspiring, rousing, and gladdening the monks with a Dhamma talk related to the training, the monk Kassapa Gota became impatient and annoyed, thinking this recluse is too scrupulous or too stern, too strict. Okay, so he's not very happy. Now notice here he lives in this way out place, right? The Buddha comes along, gives teachings. So obviously he's been living by himself and he's not been keeping up with the practice. Then when the Blessed One had resided at Pankadha for as long as he pleased, left for Rajagaha, wandering in stages, and in due course arrived at Rajagaha. There at Rajagaha, the Blessed One dwelled on Mount Vulture Peak. So this to show us that, okay, here the Buddha has come along, given a talk, and this monk's not very happy, and the Buddha leaves, all right? Then now the new scene, section 8. Then not long after the Blessed One had departed, restlessness and regret arose in the monk Kassapa Gota thus. What a loss, not a gain is at all. Difficult it is for me to gain, not easy it is for me to gain, that when the Blessed One was instructing, inspiring, rousing, and gladdening the monks with a Dhamma talk related to the teaching, I became impatient and annoyed, thinking this recluse is too scrupulous. What now if I were to approach the Blessed One and having gone up to him were to confess this transgression as such before him? Okay, this is the thesis of the teaching. This is what the key idea here. Right, so it's very important to understand this. This is why the subheadings are very helpful. So here you have this monk who's living all by himself, very happy, very comfortably, I'm sure. He doesn't hear much Dhamma talks. Here the Buddha, the teacher himself comes along, right, and so he's giving all those talks, and he finds that the Buddha a bit too strict. Then, of course, obviously he's not happy with this. When the Buddha leaves, he's very happy. But then there's something inside him that is really good. You can say this ripening of good karma, He says, oh no, I should not think this way, I mean, here's the Buddha as our teacher, And if I think this way, I wouldn't gain anything. So he says, wow, I better go and see him and, ask for forgiveness. Here, what's happening here? He feels he has done something wrong. Well, what is it that he has done wrong here? He has this negative attitude towards the teacher. He shows unhappiness towards the teacher. Often enough in the suttas we are told if you show this kind of negative attitude towards a Dhamma teacher, then you have cut off your Dhamma seeds. Then you lose touch with this teacher, especially if he's a good teacher. If he's not a good teacher, I mean, it doesn't matter, There are cases where we have to cut ourselves off from this teacher because he's so worldly and very often he has teach the wrong thing and so on. It's not very helpful to us. It's best that we actually cut ourselves off from such monks. And you find this happens in the Sangha too. Even today, you find if the Sangha, the forest Sangha finds a certain monk is not keeping up to the training, he may be a senior monk but still doesn't keep to the training, they can, as a Sangha, make a ruling. And in the worst case is nowadays, the worst case, they don't throw monks out anymore nowadays. They will ostracize him or excommunicate. You can use all this. But nowadays when you say excommunicate, it sounds very grand. You become a hero to your followers. But the sad thing, when people don't realize, there are very good reasons which the monks, for the monk, the Sangha to excommunicate the monks. But lay people do not know what's going on here. So this is one of those things that can be troubling. What keeps us as Buddhists is not the knowledge of Buddhism, it's the ignorance of Buddhism. This is very troubling. In other words, there are a lot of things we do not know what's really going on. And so we just listen, we just follow routinely, ritually. And this is the ism aspect of the teaching. So this is where you put the teacher first. So if you put the teacher first, then you're not going to progress. You won't go further than the teacher anyway, and the teacher has not gone very far. So this is why the Buddha in the Garava Sutta says his respect is to the Dharma. We put the Dharma first. So as long as you follow the Dharma, then you will know when the teacher is right, when the teacher is wrong. You don't have to judge him, but you know these are passing moments, but you don't have to follow those things. You know what to follow, what not to follow. And you feel safe, you feel happy, and also those who love the Dhamma will respect you in that sense. So here, when you have true respect for the Dhamma, you go straight to the Dhamma. You are not misled by a guru or by the crowd. In other words, so this is very important to consider. So this monk realizes he is wrong. Okay. So he doesn't feel like most monks today say, oh, since I'm a monk, I'm always right. So he feels, no, I think this is not correct, and let me correct this negative attitude. So this is just attitude, actually. He feels that the Buddha is talking too much Dhamma. Okay, so he goes to the Buddha. So this is the next part of the story. Kassapa Gota approaches the Buddha. All right. Now, when you say approach the Buddha, it is as good as saying approach the Dharma also. Okay, same, because when they go to the Buddha, they go for the Dharma. Section 11. Then the monk Kassapa tidied up his lodging and, taking his bowl and robe, left for Rajagaha. In due course, he arrived at Mount Voucher Peak outside Rajagaha. All right. Now notice, this is a sutta for lay people. Well, it is a sutta, But we have Vinaya materials here. Here we are told, before leaving, Kassapa Gota tidies up his place, right? So he will wrap up his mats and turn the bowl upside down. Normally he will bring the bowl with him. Whatever he will clean up his little kuti and so on, and then he leaves. So this is very important, right? That the monks always tidy and so on. So we have a bit of Vinaya practice here given to us so that we know how a good monk behaves. And then the next part is he talks to the Buddha. No? He approaches the Buddha and then he pays his respect. And then he tells the Buddha, section 12. There is this one occasion, Bhante, when the Blessed One was dwelling at a coastal market town named Pankadha. There the Blessed One gave teachings, right? So everything's repeated here. It says, so this monk Kassapa Gota tells the Buddha, remember you're giving a teaching. And I was not happy because, I thought that all those teachings were too strict and I'm not used to it. So I got very upset, I got very impatient with you, right? So it tells exactly as it is, okay? So this is the nature of Buddhist confession. You specifically tell what is wrong. That's the first thing. There is truth telling, okay? Number two, you go to the right person to confess. That's the Buddha, all right? Number three is you do this with the right attitude, a sense of remorse, and of course it ends up with a sense of contrition. So you feel, oh, I'm so happy now, I'm not going to repeat this silly mistake again. So in doing so, you set things right. This is the nature of confession, right? Now, we have some things to look into here. It is a very serious responsibility when someone comes to you and confess something. Say, oh, I've done something wrong. Number one, you must know how to appreciate it. How to understand it. Let's say someone say, oh, I have a wrong view, I've done something wrong, or do you think I've done this wrong? We have to be very careful because most of us, we think we're experts, We do not know a lot of things. We say, oh, okay, this is what you should do, and so on. And we think, wow, we have said the right thing. There's a special word in English for this. It's called to pontificate. Pontificate. It sounds like, let me not say the word. Anyway, so to pontificate means to behave like the Pope. So this probably is a Protestant word to speak as if you are the final authority. Right? So this is one of those things which is very wrong. And you begin to create bad karma for yourself too if you do that. So the best way here is to say, oh, I don't think I'm the right person to, tell you all these things. Or you can say perhaps, maybe you should read this sutta and then think for yourself, right? Or this is what I heard this teacher says, and this is a very safe way. So you don't use your own karma. It's like you're borrowing someone else's karma, okay? Or you deflect the karma a bit by quoting a teacher, so to speak. So in that way, the idea is to help this person think. Why is it wrong and how to get out of that wrong situation? The next thing, another ethical problem is this. Let's say you have done something wrong yourself and you really want to clear up things. Now, the Chinese will never confess something wrong to others because it is politically not strategic. Because they're always afraid that when someone else knows something bad, even something in the family, they wouldn't want to tell others because this is more strategic. They're afraid people will talk bad about them, shame will come to the family. That is something else, okay? Now here, when you do something wrong, you begin to ask yourself, if I tell this person, would he laugh at me? Right, so that's the first problem. You're afraid people might laugh at us, ridicule us, and that's not helpful at all. Number two, the person is really stupid, very foolish. He's not able to actually advise us, might give us a wrong advice. Okay? Of course, the third one would be he's wise and gives the right advice. Okay, that would be best. So it is a great responsibility when someone actually is able to give you good advice with loving kindness, not blaming you and not saying, there you are, you see, I've been suspecting you like this for a long time now, you're doing this, right? So then it is not very helpful, right? So the nature of confession is not a ritual, right? You find even in the Pali chanting, there is this the karma recital. You say, oh, may the Buddhas forgive me through body, speech and mind, okay, and so on. It is to remind us actually, to examine our own mistakes. Where did I go wrong? How did I go wrong? Why is it wrong? And how can I correct myself? So this is a very wonderful self-reflection. If you know this, it's called self-counseling. You find the good monks do this. Then, for example, this Sariputta, so his followers, lay followers, said that he liked a certain cake, so they gave him lots of these cakes. Then after a while he reflected, he says, wow, these people are giving me all these nice things, and because they know or they think that I like it, I think from now on I should not take this anymore. Okay, so he's a good monk, so he's able to do that. So no one told him, not even the Buddha. He reflected himself, I should cut down on this, right? So this self-counseling is very important. You do it for yourself, then you have wisdom, then you help yourself, right? So here, of course, in the case of Kassapa Gota, he felt that he has shown disrespect to the teacher. So he wants to establish this good connection again. So that's why he visits the Buddha. Right? So this is the second part of the story. He tells the Buddha, so he connects with the Buddha again. All right. Now, okay, everything repeats itself, so I don't have to go into them. Now, let's see how does the Buddha respond? 22. So it's very convenient. I just said 22, and you can go straight there, right? Yes. Well, yeah, 19 is the actual confession, okay? Kassapa Gota tells the Buddha, I have transgressed, Bhante, on account of folly, on account of delusion, on account of such unskill that when the Blessed One was teaching, that I have this negative attitude. I felt that, I was impatient and I thought that the teacher was being too scrupulous, too strict, all right? I don't think Kassapa Gota actually repeated exactly as the Pali was mentioned here, but this is the way the Sutta redactors record so that it can be recited. Surely there is some way the monks would talk in a polite way, depending on the local dialect and so on. So you have to imagine it's a colloquial way of talking. But once it's recorded into Pali, it takes up this kind of very interesting flow of words. No? So basically, he tells the Buddha humbly, truly, clearly, unconditionally, I have done something wrong. I got upset with you. I got upset with the teaching. Right? Okay, so that's the confession. Then the Buddha accepts this confession, right? 22. Indeed, Kassapa, you have transgressed. Notice the Buddha doesn't say, oh, it's okay, it's a small thing, right? Here the Buddha says, indeed, Kassapa, you have transgressed on account of folly, on account of delusion, on account of such unskill. Notice he repeats all the words that Kassapa Gota says. In other words, he's saying, yes, you have defined the problem. Okay, so about the teaching and so on. Then the Buddha answers, okay, for 24. However, Kassapa, having seen your transgression for what it is, you have made amends to in accordance with the Dharma, right? So here again, it is very important to learn this method, right? So the Buddha is very positive. He says, yes, you have defined your transgression, your mistake, your error correctly, and you have done this for this reason, right? So this is beautiful counseling. No? 25. As such, we accept this of you. Notice the Buddha uses the royal we. No? It doesn't say I accept, right? No, can you imagine if it says I accept this of you? Wow, it sounds like really is the Buddha. The Buddha is the authority, right? So here the we is not the kingly authority at all. The we here means if the Buddha accepts this, the Sangha also accepts it. So the Buddha is talking as a community of monks. So this is the way the monks should behave. And we have what is called the silent audience. Who is the silent audience here? We are the silent audience. We are the audience today who are reading this, who are watching this scenario, this whole play being reacted, you see. Because the idea is to teach us. So that is why the Buddha does all this. It says, as such, we accept this of you. For Kassapa, this is progress in the discipline, the Vinaya, of noble ones, where one, having seen a transgression as a transgression, makes amends in accordance with the Dharma and shows restraint henceforth. So notice there are three parts here. No? Number one, you see wrong as wrong. Number two, you make amends. And then number three is show restraint. Number three is contrition. All right? Contrition. Yeah? So you have something like remorse, and then truthfulness, and then contrition. All right? Three aspects. No? So it's a very beautiful passage to discuss if you're talking about counseling, all right? Spiritual counseling especially. All right, so up to here, the Buddha has given what he wants to say in terms of counseling Kassapa Gotha. Now he shows the gravity of it, the seriousness of this attitude of knowing wrong to be wrong, and then setting it right, and then make sure that you don't repeat this. So here, the Buddha wants to remove any feeling of guilt in Kassapa Gotha. He doesn't want Kassapa Gotha to feel that it's just his personal fault, right? That he alone is in error here. The Buddha now says, basically, anyone else who has this attitude should follow this way of correcting it, right? So now if you look at the subheadings, you see the next subheading, when the Buddha does not praise an elder monk, right? And then the next subheading, when the Buddha does not praise a middle-aged monk. So notice I didn't say middle-aged monk, I said middle-aged. We'll find out meaning in a while. And the third part, the conclusion, when the monk does not praise a new monk, all right? All right, look at 27. If Kassapa, there were an elder monk who desires not the training, who speaks not in praise of undertaking the training, and there are also other monks who desire not the training, and he moves them not to understand the training. Sorry? To undertake the training. And there are other monks who desire the training, and he does not speak in praise of what is true, real, and timely. Kassapa, I too do not speak up in praise. I do not speak in praise of that elder monk. What is the reason? Because other monks would associate with them thinking the teacher speaks in praise of him. When they associate with him, they would fall into following his views too. When they fall into following his views, it would be for their loss, their suffering for a long time. Therefore, Kassapa, I do not speak in praise of such elder monks, right? So this is the key passage of the three. So here the Buddha says, even if you are an elder monk, meaning a monk who is 10 years or more, right? If 20 years or more, will be a great elder. 10 years is elder, Thera. So it says, if this elder monk has done something wrong, and he doesn't admit it, and on the contrary, he thinks he's doing it right, and other monks follow him, the Buddha says, I will not praise such monks. Okay? Notice here it's a non-confrontational way of doing things. The Buddha only goes as far to throw out among is really serious. Otherwise, it's this idea that they can still change, right? The Buddha is very compassionate, very patient. So here the Buddha says that, well, I won't praise such a monk. In other words, the Buddha doesn't endorse such a monk. He doesn't support such a monk. He lets the monk stay, but he has nothing to do with him, so to speak, right? This is what the Sangha today tries to do. When they excommunicate a monk, they say, we have nothing to do with you, hoping that this monk would think things over and change, all right? So if the monk says, oh, these elders themselves are bad and so on, then it's another story, it will be very sad. See? So if the individual monk has really true respect for the Dhamma, he would consider, even when he feels that the Sangha is wrong, he will still accept the Sangha's decision. This is what happened to Ananda, He accepts the decision of the Sangha because, for example, after the Buddha passed away, the Sangha called up Ananda. He says, Ananda, why did you allow women to view the body of the Buddha after he passed away? You let these women to see the Buddha's body first, and they were crying and so on, other tears were wetting the Buddha's body, things like that. So the Ananda replies, he says, well, I did that because it is quite late in the night, and the women should pay their respects to the Buddha and then go home safely, right? So he explains everything. But even then, all those various accusations brought against him in the first council, at the end of it, he still says, despite all these things, I still show my respect to the Sangha. So he always puts the Sangha first, right, in that sense. Right? So he does not break away from the Sangha. So if you break away from the Sangha, it's quite a serious matter, really. Sadly, this is lost to most people nowadays, who, for us, worldly convention and social acceptance by the world, being awarded worldly titles is much more important, right? So we have a different kind of Sangha in this case, right? So, but you still have the old Sangha who follow the three jewels, so we should go to them, in other words. So the Buddha says, even if it's an elder monk, I will not approve of him if he behaves in this way. If he's wrong, he doesn't see he's wrong, he doesn't confess the mistakes, then others will follow him. That's the reason why he doesn't approve of this elder monk, because others will follow him and then follow his wrong views too, and so on, right? Now, the Buddha, to stress this point, goes a second cycle. So these are three cycles. The first cycle is the elder cycle. Now comes the middle-aged monk cycle, right? So look at the first few words. 35. If, Kassapa, there were a middling-aged monk who desires not the training, who speaks not in praise of undertaking the training, and so on, and then this monk is in error, he's not happy with the training, he wants to change things, and then there are other younger monks or lay people following him. The Buddha says, I will not approve of such a monk too, even if he is middle age. Middle age, that means 5 years in the order up to 10 years. Okay? 5 wasa up to 10 wasas. What is it right now? Is that a question? Once you reach 10, right? There's a sadhu, you're an elder now, in the temple. Yeah, technically speaking, 5 to 9 years. Okay. So now the third cycle, the Buddha says, what more if it's a young monk and a Navaka bhikkhu? Okay. Now Navaka bhikkhu are the, you can say, probationary. Well, not really probationary. They're already monks. They're still under tutelage, In other words, the first 5 years, it's very important that they are with a teacher. They don't go around like an elder. They're not independent. And for 0 years, ordination time until, say, just 4 years or 5 years. I remember there was one case, this monk we knew, he became a monk, then he was in Thailand, I think. Sometimes it can be very difficult for Western monks to follow this rule. They think highly of the Sangha, they're very excited to become a monk. Then finally when they become monks, they find Asians generally are very friendly people, very forgiving, and foreigners often have they are given special treatment. Then they begin to feel as if the local teachers are not worthy of his full respect. And then he feels that he doesn't need to do the tutelage. This is a very dangerous attitude, because in the humility and simple life of the local Asian teacher lies the greatness of the Dhamma, which if you miss, you will destroy your vocation. So this monk is very intelligent, very outspoken. He's hardly 2-3 years in the Sangha, and he says, I already know the Dhamma very well, from books of course. And now he is looking for a sponsor to set up a center. So he was trying very hard to do this, and then these elders, lay elders rather, asked me what to do. I said, you got to tell this monk he got to finish off his tutelage, at least 5 years. Even when you do the 5 years tutelage, it doesn't mean that you are qualified to go on your own. The teacher will decide whether you are already a monk or not. I mean, you may wear the robe, but it's not a monk inside the robes yet. So you have to really to be a monk, humble enough to be a monk, renounced enough to be a monk. But sadly, this person is very arrogant, very proud, very self-confident. And then sadly, after a few years, he actually disrobed. So there you are, there goes someone who could have been a good monk because he failed in the tutelage, right? So being a Navaka bhikkhu, a new monk, observing the 5 years of tutelage is a very vital part of being a monk. So the Buddha is saying here, this monk who is a young monk, who is a new monk, he doesn't appreciate the training, and he doesn't realize that it is wrong. The Buddha doesn't approve of it too. So there you are. This sutta should be studied with the Ahita Tera Sutta, if you remember that one, right? Where the Buddha says, even a great monk, even a famous monk can have wrong views, right? So there you are. The Buddha is reminding us that to renounce the world is to show great humility and respect for the Sangha, and to keep to the training. Questions? Or any feedback?
Yeah, in the earlier, they tell you that thinking, getting annoyed is itself a transgression.
Mm-hmm.
Now, being angry for a monk, I think may be the transgression.
Oh yes.
But being angry for a layman may not be.
Yeah.
If the anger persists and then you keep on getting angry and all that, then maybe, but if you just dismiss it after there's nothing wrong with that. For a layman.
Yeah. No, that's why I said the context is very important, right? This sutta is addressed to a monk, but it is recorded in the section for lay people. So it's very interesting, is it? So here, what is happening is the Buddha is showing lay people, say, okay, this is what happens with the monks, So even monks sometimes are not happy with the teacher, right? So, but this is what monks do. Yeah, it is true. In the case of layperson, the monks normally will be more patient with this layperson and will kind of ask him why and so on. Here, it's because of the level of commitment. In the case of a monk, he already taken the vows, the commitment that he's going to follow the teaching. So if he doesn't, then of course there is a transgression because he's not keeping to the contract himself. Is it? So that's the difference. Whereas for a layperson, there is no such contract. We just say, okay, we'll keep the precepts, 5 precepts. We're not keeping the monastic Vinaya. So that's the difference there, yes. Of course, it doesn't mean that there's nothing wrong at all in a layperson getting upset. We should see the context of it, okay? He doesn't need to hate the person. He can say, okay, what I do not like is this kind of action. I think this is wrong. Okay? So you can calmly disregard that action. Right? Of course, naturally, most of us, a certain sense of dislike, disapproval can take various levels of darkness. Okay, that we have to examine for ourselves and tell ourselves we don't have to go that deep to be unhappy, because then the darkness is within us. It's not from someone else. The point is to see someone else's wrong as that person's own doing. We are not the author of it. We do not have to be a part of it. And the next point is, how can we, having said that, be an agent in some way to correct that wrong view? So we have to speak out in a way also. But how, of course, depends on our skill. So you have this balance of interaction. When you see something wrong, what do we do? Do we speak out? Do we not speak out? When do we speak out? Things like that. I feel it's important for us to speak out in an educating way, in a Dhamma way, so people know what's right, what's wrong. They don't glorify the wrong thing. They don't follow it. And this is what actually our Sutta Discovery series tries to do also. Try to present the Dhamma side of things. But generally, lay people, we are given more latitude, more space. Okay? That means we need more guidance too. Yeah. The good monks, they often will actually thank you sometimes when you criticize them. They will say, oh, thank you for reminding me. You have a very wonderful relationship of respect. There are others who feel, oh, I'm well above you. You're a layman. You should not be criticizing me. Now, that's a very wrong remark, right? Some Buddhist groups like to say that you're a layman, so you should not be talking bad about the monks at all. That's not true. The whole Vinaya, in a sense, that the layman talking bad about the monks and telling the monks, talking bad about the bad monks, which is true. Isn't it? So because of that, the Buddha say, okay, let's make all these rules and make sure the monks do not become bad monks. So the idea is to nurture that faith in the lay people, so that they don't have a negative attitude towards the monks and the nuns. Anything else? 2 more suttas to go. No? Next round probably we can finish off. Right, let's close this study. Approach the end of this volume. We have studied quite a number of suttas on precepts and practice. This surely must have given us some idea how the Buddha has in different ways taught the Dhamma so that we practice according to our own strength, our own wisdom, and always going back to the suttas, to the Dhamma, so that we are strengthened and we are corrected in our wrong ways. One of the benefits of age is that if we keep in touch with the suttas, we begin to understand it better, it becomes clearer as we age, and that is a very joyful experience. Reflecting in this way is cultivating good karma. By the power of such good karma, may we be well and happy right here, right now, so that we are wise enough and strong enough to aspire to be at least stream winners in this life itself. And may we be well and happy for that, especially if we are studying the suttas and teaching it. And also may our loved ones, those close to us, near and dear to us, to be well and happy. And may those who are practicing the Dharma too see the fruits of their practice in this life itself. And may those who have difficulties with the teaching see the truth, the joyful truth in this life itself too. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.